Okay. Now this will be recorded, so people, can go back. Sometimes it will let me upload it right to the Blackboard site, and other times I have to upload it to YouTube. So it it's a temperamental beast. But it was either this or use Teams, and it's just how ccac has everything set up. It's just easier to do Zoom, because it will transfer a lot easier. But it's nice to see everyone. If you could turn on your cameras. When we take exams, you will have to have your camera on. So if you do have a device that does not have a camera, since you'll know when the tests are ahead of time, maybe you can find someone you can borrow their device, or you can have your the test open on your computer and you could use your phone camera. So I can do it, because that's how I monitor, I proctor you. Instead of using Examine, I watch you take the exam, and it's pretty quick. Like, I email you the exam and an answer sheet. You write the answers on the answer sheet. You email me back the answer sheet. You get your grade before the next class. So it's pretty straightforward, all done by email. So you may want to bookmark my email somewhere, put it somewhere that you would have easy access. And it will be the same thing with the activity folder that we'll talk about. The first 3 you actually email to me. Then the next set of 7, you actually will be doing one big Word document. And you're going to just copy and paste them into that Word document. And at the end of the class, it's like the next to the last class, you send me the Word document. That's part of your class participation. It's like 1/6 of your grade. But I have you send the first 3 to me so I can check them and make sure you're doing them correctly. I don't want anyone losing points over this. It's class participation. Everyone should be able to get 100% on class participation. So, if they all waited to the end of the course, you could do the whole thing wrong, and then you'd lose all those points. So that's why I do the first 3 that I have you email them to me, and then I'll check it as soon as you send it. I mean, within a day. Give me some time. I have 3 classes, plus I teach full-time at a high school. I'm a concierge at Mercy Hospital, and I'm the voice of Kennywood. So, and I proctor nursing exams. So in between my 5 jobs, and you thought you were busy, right? Usually I can get assignments back to people within 24 hours. But if it happens to be one of those nights that I'm working till 11, I like you guys, you're great, but I'm not going to be up at 3 a.m. grading your papers. I'll wait till the next day to do it, and you'll get them. So just be patient with me, but I will always respond, I got it. So I got your document. Okay. And I'll check that I can open it, because sometimes it spends, especially if you send it by Google Docs and you don't give me permission, I can't open your document. So if I can't read it, I can't grade it. So, I'll email back and say, you have to give me permission. But Word is always good. Or the other option you have is just type your response into a body of an email. Just make sure you put your name in the body of the email, because I will go to print those out. Can you wait just 1 second? Sorry, lost student. And my door was open. So as I was saying, I will get them back to you as quickly as I can. This way, if you have anything that needs to be fixed or changed, I won't take off points. I'll send it back to you and say, fix it. But I do have to be able to get into the document. But like I said, you can actually, if you don't want to chance a document, just send me an email, and in the body of the email, put your activity, like put the answers to the activity. Just make sure you have your name on it, because when I go to print them out, because I will print them out from my folder, it won't print out your email, because I'm just going to copy and paste what's in the body of the email onto a Word document. And if you don't put a name on it, I'm not going to know whose it is, other than going through all my literally hundreds of emails to find you. So, okay, we good? I have 6:06, even though we're missing a few people. I think it's there, we got a couple more over here. Yeah. So let's get started. I am going, like I said, I am recording this. If everyone will stay on mute, if you want to talk, take yourself off of mute, that's okay. Or you can literally raise your hand. But once I share my screen, I just get a notification. So sometimes it's just easier to just say my name. I have a question or something like that. I don't bite, nibble a little, but I don't bite. Again, I'm Mary Ann Shplasky. I've been teaching for ccac since 2002. I'm a full-time teacher at Central Catholic. I teach AP Psych, regular Psych, sociology, Pittsburgh history, and morality to junior boys. That's always a fun one, And then I am the voice of Kennywood. I've worked at Kennywood for 43 years. So if you get Kennywood's little blurbs about employment this past week on Facebook, you actually saw me. It's in a green shirt with another lady in the green shirt. We've been two of the longest employees there. I think they put us there because they wanted to show they hire old people, but that's okay. I made the Facebook page. I also proctor nursing students that are in supportive services, so they qualify for some extended time, and I'll do the ATI nursing exam. So if any of you are nurses, you may see me along the way for that. And my newest job is I am a concierge at Mercy Hospital on the weekends. So I get to greet people and help them find where they go. But that's my newest job. I've only been there 4 weeks, so I'm still learning. So I know what it's like to be in a new class per se, because I haven't had to get a new job for a long time. So I'm realizing, sometimes it takes a little bit to get on board. So let me share my screen. And I'm going to pull up the syllabus first. Now, on Blackboard, let me move this aside. So I'm going to close it so I don't see you, but you'll see me. On Blackboard, this is under course documents. Everything to make it easy for everyone. Like I said, I've had people, I had an 82-year-old woman 5 semesters ago. It was her first college class. Her husband refused to let her go to college. He said, women don't need to be going to college, and you will go to college over my dead body. And the day he died, not kidding, you can't make these stories up, she registered for classes, and I was her first class. She got a B. So if she can get a B, you can get a B too. But she wasn't very good in Blackboard. And since then, I've realized that there are some people that are just not good with Blackboard. So everything is under course documents. And I mean, literally everything. All the PowerPoints for the entire course are there. All the activities, everything is there. And I even left up some of my links for my previous courses on YouTube. If you miss a class and you want to get caught up quick and don't wait for it to upload. Or if you're sick and you don't want to be on, but you want to watch the lecture, you can just hop on the YouTube and watch the thing. It's the same class. That's the nice thing about Intro to Psychology. Intro to Psychology doesn't change. It doesn't. So let me see what my chat thing is. Okay. Nope, no problem. Understand. Don't worry about it. Not an issue. Okay, so you found the link either by my email sending you. The book is the Hockenberry book. Some people have asked me, you need an Intro to Psychology book. You need an Intro to Psychology book. I understand it's not cheap. So we're going to pretend you don't hear me say this, even though it's being filmed. If you find the older edition, it's pretty much the same, because Intro to Psychology is Intro to Psychology. So if you're really financially scrapped, you can get by with the older edition, okay? But you can't tell anyone I just said that. Okay. If you have a friend who's taking the course at South Campus and they're using a different book, they're using the Wade book, and I teach Intro to Psychology over there too. When I plan my class, I teach by topic. And all those topics are in Intro to Psychology books. So if there really is another book that you can get a hold of because your friend's taking it too and you want to share, just send me an email and let me know what book it is, and I'll check it out and let you know if you can get away with that. All the assignments, like I said, are posted on Blackboard. There's nothing specific out of the book that I'm going to say, read page 32, this. I'm going to tell you what to read in your book, what topics, what you need to stress, and what you can skip, because your textbook is like 600 pages long, and it's a 14-week course. But you will need access to an Intro to Psychology book. This book is awesome. I really like it. It's Worth Publishers. They just got bought out. And I mean, they have good people that write these books. I've done some reviewing of their text. I did not review this book. I reviewed the Myers book, but this is the book that ccac chose because it's a little cheaper than the other one. So that's officially the book. If you can get it somewhere other than the bookstore for cheaper, I don't have a problem. Your first test isn't for like 4 weeks. So as long as you get the material before that and can read fairly fast, you would be okay. But that's officially the book. And let me see what we have. And like I said, when I do the thing, I can put up the cover of the book later. I don't have the book. I don't carry it with me. But yeah, you can either use the ISBN, or like I said, I can take a picture of it when I get home and upload it, or upload it tomorrow. But if you go to the where you registered and you click on the bookstore and click book for this class, it will pull up the picture of the book and the ISBN and everything like that. Okay. But I'll do that, but I can't do it right now because I don't have the book with me. Okay. So this first part is the summary. You have it on all your syllabuses. And that's because Intro to Psychology is a transferable course to almost everywhere, because Intro to Psychology is Intro to Psychology. But this documentation right here is what makes it transferable, because it's telling that other college or university what we covered and in what order. So if you're going to transfer this, you may want to make a copy of this. You do have access to the course material even after the course for a little bit. So you could print this out, or you could always email me and I can send you a copy. But if you are transferring to another school, they may ask for it. I had a I had a lot of students this summer from CMU take my class because they weren't offering enough sections, and they all transferred. I mean, every single one of them, their psych class transferred. So this will transfer pretty much anywhere, unless it's a specific program. Nursing will transfer this one. Nursing will also transfer human growth and development, but I don't think it will transfer your anatomy and physiology 1 and 2. So I think some courses don't transfer, but this one does transfer. So your grades are based on class participation. That's that journal that I was talking about, that you'll have an assignment. It's pretty much every week. They're all in Blackboard already. Some aren't open yet for you, but they're all there. It's the first couple weeks I think I have ready for you to do if you want to work ahead. So it's 1/6 of your grade. There are 4 written exams. They are not cumulative. So exam 1 is lectures 1, 2, and 3. Exam 2 is lectures 4, 5, 6. Lecture 3 is 7 and 8. Lecture 7, 8. There's only 2 on that one because they're bigger topics. It's actually the human growth and development, birth to death. That alone is a lot, and social psychology. So there's only 2 lectures you'll be responsible for that test, the 3rd test. And then the 4th test, again, not cumulative. It's officially the final, even though I call it the 4th test. That's your final. It's stress and emotions and motivation and personality. So you can plan it out ahead of time, studying for each topic. So each exam is worth 1/6 of your grade. So now we're at 5/6 of your grade, and you'll be writing me a paper. The paper is 5 or more pages. That's 5 full pages, double-spaced type 12-point font, 1-inch margins, 3 citations. Wikipedia is not a citation that you can use for this paper, but you can look at Wikipedia and go to the bottom of the page and check out their citations and go to those citations, and you would be able to use it. They're much better than they used to be, but they're still an open source document, so there can be wrong information there. And you would want to use citations. It doesn't have to be like one in a book and one, online or thing. You can take them all online, but they have to be from credible sources. So Joe Schmo's blog is not a credible source. So if you were doing the topic of autism, Autism Speaks, which is the organization, would be an excellent, place to go get information. But personal experience is not a citation for a research paper. You're going to find other people's research on a topic of your choice. We have a pretty big class, but I only allow 3 people to do a topic. So starting next week, if you know what topic you want to do, you can sign up for it. You send me an email and I'll put you on the list. And once 3 people have a topic, then no one else can pick that topic. And on Blackboard, I have a list of some topics. But as long as your topic gets okayed by me, and I've okayed everything for the most part that has any connection to psychology, because it's such a wide field, I would be glad to look over your topic, or if I'm not familiar with the topic, I may ask you to give me a source that I could look before I would okay it. But yeah, I only do 3 people to a topic, because it would be really boring if you had to sit here and listen to 38 people do attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, because you're all going to present either on Flipgrid or you're going to present live. So that's why I limit it to 3, because at that point, we're not getting a lot of new material. Okay. But I'll be dropping hints, more hints other than the ones that are on the website. So you don't have to do one of those. I just copied a whole bunch of topics off the American Psychological page. So you had something to go by. If you miss a test, you have to email me like within 24 hours that you missed the exam, and you would be able to make up one exam on the makeup day. And the makeup day is at the end of the semester. It's like 2 weeks before the end. So, we keep moving. You make it up. If you qualify for supportive services, then we have your test in supportive services, and you schedule a time. Or if it's just extended time, I would be glad to hop on early and give you the time to do it that way, or stay on later if you need time. Typically, I give the test the second half of class. I'll actually teach for about an hour and 15 minutes, give you a 15-minute break, and then you have the whole rest of the class to finish it. I do it that way because this way people who are done in 20 minutes don't have to kind of stick around waiting for everyone else to get done. But at the same time, I want to give the people that need the time, if you need the hour and a half, because if it means you're going to get a better grade because you have more time to think and process, then I'm going to give you the time. Okay. So you will have to just let me know how you want to do that and choose that. But everyone has that same option of having the additional time if you want to come on early or pop in late. Okay. I think we know already plagiarism here at ccac. You get caught plagiarizing, they turn you in. You might not be long here at ccac if they catch you plagiarizing. There's difference if there's like 1 or 2 words. Or I've had students copy literally word for word off of websites, like whole pages worth of stuff, and pretend it's their stuff. That's a problem with academic integrity, especially when it's an online class. So you will not be passing that paper. And what will happen is you will give me a print copy and a digital copy, and I will upload it to turn it in to check that it's not plagiarized. Okay, so you know where I'm coming from. I want your ideas. That's okay. Thank you. So I want your ideas and your thoughts and your words, because I can read somebody else's words. I can't, know your thoughts without you giving them to me. And then some basic expectations, the stuff that I talked about, the activities. And then if you notice, I have here the first 3 activities are emailed to me by the due date. I already said that, but that's printed right on your syllabus. And then here are the other activities for your journal. I even put the links to the videos there for you. So you can just copy and paste the link or click on the link to watch the video and do a review, like 2 paragraphs about the thing. And then here's our schedule. We meet every week, okay, at 6 o'clock. And you can see that here's our topic. Here's your assignments, if I'm doing test and quizzes, or how we're evaluating you on that. And it goes through. So our first test, if you notice, is not until February 28th. So for the people that need to order the book online, you have some time, to get the book online. And then test 2, notice your topics are due on March 14th. Once you pick your topic at that point, you cannot change your topic, because now, people have had to not do a topic because you said you were going to do something. So by March 14th, if you do not pick a topic by March 14th, I will pick a topic for you. And I tend to pick interesting ones that nobody else seems to pick. And I'll give you some examples in a minute. I just wanted to show you the rest. So you can see the whole rest. Everything's there. I already have, you can do the presentations in person or on Flipgrid. But you can see, because we have a big group, you have papers due, and we'll have some presentations today. We'll have some presentations this day. We'll have some presentations this day. So, it's going to depend on how many people choose to do Flipgrid, how many we're actually going to have in class. But even if everyone did them all in class, this would be enough time, since the presentations are only 5 to 8 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share now for this. And we got a few more people in, so let me see if, let me check the chat real quick, because I couldn't see the chat when I was on the other side. Okay. Oh, good, you rented yours for $8. Hey, that's awesome. Yeah, save money. College is way too expensive. Okay, for the teacher edition of the book that you have, it's close to $500 if you would have to, buy it. But luckily, the textbook companies, as long as we can see the instructor has so many students, they give them to us. And then when we're done teaching, we have to send them back to them, so we can't sell it or do anything like that. So, okay. So, does anybody have any questions off the top of their head? Or, like I said, you can always email me. You have my cell phone number on the syllabus, and that is my cell phone number. So I do ask a favor. I do not want to get any calls after midnight, and I shouldn't get any calls before 7 o'clock in the morning. One person one time actually called me at 4 in the morning to ask me if I thought there was going to be so much snow that class may be canceled. I thought somebody died. It's 4 in the morning. I'm like, I don't make those decisions. That's ccac. So just so you know, no later than 12, no earlier than 7. Texting is the best way to get a hold of me. Texting or email. Because I'm teaching all day in a classroom, I can always look down when I have a break and respond. But if you call me, I'm not going to get back to you until later in that day when school is over. But I can quickly send a text, and I can quickly do an email if my students at school are taking a test or doing an activity. And this way you don't have to wait a long time to get an answer. Okay? So let's go from here. Any other things? Thank you everyone for putting up those links. That's awesome. If you can, like I said, if you can save some money, I want you to save money. Okay, it's just ridiculous how much they charge for books. Yes, I know. I just filmed this and it's there, so nobody share that. Please don't share that. So let me get this. And let me close the syllabus and open our lecture for tonight. So typically what I do, and again, you're just going to learn for the first couple, since nobody's had me before, except Joey Bag. Joey Bag, are you Joey Bag that I taught at Central? If not,
Yeah,
no.
finishing college.
Hey, I was thinking, wow, maybe I know that person. Yay. But
It's good to be back.
Yay. Good. When we talk about intro to psychology, it is basically 13 separate courses. And it's going to seem all over the place. I mean, really, really all over the place. And don't get discouraged. I'm going to warn you, tonight I'm going to do my best to make it interesting, but it's the history of psychology. So I'm going to work really hard, but don't give up on us. Give us a little bit of time to actually get through and get to some of the meatier stuff. So the first test is the history. It's basically psychobiology. So for my people that hate biology, it's only 1 week. And then we go on to a different topic. So every week is a completely different topic. So if there's something that you're not getting or you really are not interested in, it's only 1 lecture. So you can hang in there. But I am warning you, I will do my best, but it is kind of dry tonight. I usually lecture for about an hour and a half. And then I give you like a 10-15-minute break so you can maybe grab a snack or, go to the bathroom or put out your dog, whatever you have to do. And then you'll never go to 9:10, even though it's scheduled to 9:10. Usually I try to get you out by 9. It depends on where we're at a breaking point. Like tonight, we did this whole section like an introduction. So I may not get through the whole lecture. So if it's at a point where I want to stop, so the whole thing continues next time, we may get done 10 minutes early or 15 minutes early. Or if I think, we have 2 more slides to do, then I may go to 9:02 just so we get done. But you'll always be done as best I can by 9, if not a little more. And you will always have a break, 10 to 15. I say 10 minutes, figuring you'll all be back in 15. I've been teaching a long time. I know how it works. Okay. So, but let's get started. Let me share my screen. And again, I will try my best to make it interesting. Now, when I'm like this, I can't see your chat, so I won't see your chat messages until actually I get back to the other screen. So when we talk about intro to psychology, what is psychology? So the easiest definition, it's the science of mental processes and behavior. So we're going to break that down first. What is a science? So we have to determine what makes this a science, because we weren't always a science. And what are mental processes? Cognition, how we think, how we reason, what data goes in, how do we store information? One of the cool things that we do as part of this intro to psych class, when we get to this section on memory, I actually will teach you how to improve your memory. And that's something you can take with you to any class, not only intro to psychology. I'll teach you some different techniques that can help you learn, because you may not even be studying to your best of your ability. And I actually will be giving you a multiple intelligence test. It's self-scored, so you don't share the information with anyone other than your score you'll get for your journal. You'll just send me your score. But it will tell you some of the best ways for you to study based on what your score is on your multiple intelligence test. And then, of course, behavior. That's what psychology is all about, how people behave, why they behave. And social psychologists even believe, if we know your attitudes, we can predict your behavior. So we got some fun topics coming up. When we look at psychology, there are 3 components that we're looking at. We're going to look at the brain and how the brain functions, and we're going to learn the parts of the brain. Now, again, this is not anatomy and physiology, so we're hitting the highlights. Okay. The person, birth to death, not kidding. If you would take me for human growth and development, which I'll be teaching in the summer, the last class is always so depressing because I have to talk about death the entire class. So it's kind of a downer at the end, but it's life. That's what it is. We're born and we die, and we look at the psychological path that we travel to get from one end to the other. So we'll look at the person, the individual. And then when we get a whole bunch of persons together, we have a group. So how do people work in a group? And what if a group doesn't work? Or what if you don't want to be in a group? Maybe you want to be all by yourself and do things yourself and be just an individual. And sometimes we sway what we're going to do when we're in a group because we want to fit in. So we'll be talking about social psychology quite a bit. It's one of my favorite fields. So I think you'll like that field also. So as I said, we didn't start out as a science because in order for us to be a science, we would, definition-wise, we have to follow the scientific method. In the early days, we were not following the scientific method. Structuralism was Wilhelm Wundt and Edward Titchener, and their idea was to try to figure out what is human consciousness, what is going on, what makes us alive, and the way that we are. And they were looking at the very basics, like the building blocks. And how did they find out what people were thinking about and who they were? They asked them. Well, there's a problem with that. People can lie, and people do lie. So, it's not really verifiable. They could say, hey, I really like this and I enjoy doing this and this is great, and may hate it. And you would never know because you're just asking someone's opinion. You weren't really collecting data in a way that we had a behavior that followed the scientific method. We didn't have a hypothesis. We didn't have a theory. We didn't even have data other than just asking someone. And it's a proven fact. People will lie. They will. So you can see why we weren't considered a science. And then came along functionalism. And William James is getting a little closer to us being called a science because he was really influenced by Darwin. And we know Darwin collected data. He really looked at the environment and how animals were similar in many ways to humans and human behavior, and how these animals would survive and adapt to the environment, and therefore being able to live on. Now, some of you may have not had biology for a real long time, so I'm going to just throw in one little thing that I guarantee will be on a test somewhere. When we talk about survival of the fittest, which is a key to Darwin's theory and also a key to William James' research, survival of the fittest doesn't mean just that an adaptation took place. Survival of the fittest means that you were able to reproduce and pass on that genetic code to another generation. So survival of fittest isn't only the adaptation, it's the adaptation and you being able to reproduce to pass on that genetic code. Many people don't understand that, and they just automatically think it's the adaptation. So I guarantee that question is always on one of my exams somewhere, usually on the first exam. We'll talk a little bit about Darwin a little later in the course, but it's usually on the first exam. So there's a hint to at least one exam question. The nice thing about James was he was trying to be very pragmatic. At this time period, when he was doing his research, most kids did not go to school beyond the age of 12. They were working in factories or out in the fields, and they didn't have time for education. So James tried to find ways that he could improve education in the younger children. So if they did have to leave to work the farm, to work in a factory, they would have at least some basic information so they could survive. Okay. Gestalt theory. Max Wernheimer is the main one. There are plenty more. We'll do a lot more on Gestalt theory when we do the third lecture on sensation and perception. Gestalt theory lends itself to the way we view the world, okay? Because the focus of Gestalt theory is looking at the big picture, okay? It's the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I'm going to pop off just for a second so I can see you. So when you look at something through the eyes of a Gestalt theorist, okay, you're taking everything in. So let's say, and I'm going to draw this on a piece of paper instead of trying to use the whiteboard in the back. And it will be okay, I think, no matter what. So I don't know if you can see that. Trying to get it, there we go. So if I asked you what this is, I've had people say cat ears, dog ears, mountains. I even had somebody, not kidding, somebody said, remember Madonna in the early days, she used to wear those cones. Yeah, somebody answered Madonna's breast. I had to leave the room laughing. It was quite amusing. But if you look at this, see, these two are not connected. I always get someone who says M, and that's right. If you're a Gestalt theorist, your brain looks at this whole image and says, it's the letter M. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Okay, so when we do the whole section on Gestalt theory with sensation perception, we'll talk much more about that. Okay, let's see. Let me go back and hop on again here. So remember, the whole is greater than sum of the parts. Now we finally are getting closer to be a science, but we're still not a science. Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud is the most popular, most well-known psychologist ever. Even though most of his theory right now, people would say is questionable. There are some things that are still standing and, you know, they're excellent. The problem with Freud, he didn't collect a lot of data. All of his research were done with white women, middle-aged, rich, from Vienna. He didn't even have any research that he collected data from for men. And he applied his theory to everyone. Didn't matter where you were from, how old you were, how young you were, male, female, you know, race, nothing. So his research was questionable. So that's why he's not a science yet there. He had quite a few theories. And the main one, of course, is his psychodynamic theory. And Sigmund Freud, like I said, I always like to say he was a few fries short of a Happy Meal, okay? There are just some things that he, you know, he got really crazy about. And I'll give some examples in a few minutes as we move on. But he says our personality, and we'll talk a lot about Freud when we get to the section on personality. That's like the fourth test. That we have conscious thought and we have unconscious thought. Okay? And conscious thought, we're aware of. and unconscious thought we're not aware of. And I always like to use the iceberg model. If you think of an iceberg sticking out of the water, it's actually looks very small, but if you actually went underneath the surface, it's huge. But see, you don't see it because it's under the water. So he would say the stuff you see is conscious thought. The stuff that's like right at the waterline, that could be part over and part under, he would say that's pre-conscious thought. Somebody could bring it to mind very quickly. Like, what do you think about elephants? So like 4 seconds before I said that, none of you were thinking of an elephant. I would be amazed if anybody would have been thinking about an elephant. But as soon as I said elephant, maybe you like them, it popped in your mind. I like elephants. Or, oh, no, I don't like elephants. They're really big. That's pre-conscious. It's there, and you were able to pull it up to the surface. But the unconscious level is buried down. And the unconscious is not something that we see. It can come to the surface through dreams, sometimes hypnosis, sometimes just naturally, if we're put in a situation, we will recall it. But it's a large area, and it's the home of all our aggressions, our sexual tensions, the longings and the desires that we may have. And a lot of Freud's research was on dream analysis. So let me pop off again a second. So I'm going to give you an example of, when we talk about Freud's dream analysis. Freud had so many dreams that they actually offered a course at Pitt that I took. So I had 14 weeks of listening to Freud's dreams that he had shared from his clients. So this is an actual dream. Can't make this stuff up. So a gentleman goes to Freud and asks Freud for help. Dr. Freud, I keep having this dream over and over and over again. I just, I can't get a hold on it. I don't know why I keep having this dream. And he said, oh, okay, well, tell me your dream. And the man says, there's a beautiful meadow and the sun is shining and it's fall. And there's huge tree in the meadow right next to this little brook, this little stream of water. And it's just such a beautiful day. And he walks closer to the tree and he just like hugs the tree. And it's the kind that has that real nice bark that you could like scratch your back on. So he talks about how in the dream he's like scratching his back on the bark and he just slides down to the bottom and he feels, oh, just so great. And he's looking up and the sun is shining through and he's never felt so good. And he's relaxing because he hears the water running right next to him. And it's like, Dr. Freud, I keep having this dream. It's like, it's very simple. You're outside and you're outside with nature and you feel good because nature is feminine and you're embracing, the feminine side. And, we call Mother Nature, and water means life and water means birth and water means sex. And you're dreaming about having sex with your mother. I'm not kidding. That was his analysis of that dream. So now you understand why I said he might be a few fries short of a Happy Meal. Yes, Freud did use cocaine. But yes, cocaine was legal at that time. So you can't, say he was doing something he wasn't supposed to do. They even had it in Coca-Cola and they had it in cough medicine that they used to give to children if they were crying too much. Here, honey, here's some Coke. Zap. and they were out. People didn't know. People didn't understand the effects of cocaine at that time. Okay. So even though we say that, we don't have to, worry about it. Okay. So back to the screen. So when we talk about Freud, there are some questionable things. We won't be really going into much deep. This would be the stuff you would need to know for the first exam, just this intro stuff on each of these particular psychologists. And we are finally a science. Oh my goodness, finally, right? You're thinking, good. John Watson and B.F. Skinner. John Watson and B.F. Skinner used data. They collected data, which meant they followed the scientific method. They analyzed it. They made a hypothesis. They researched more. They made a theory. People checked their theory and rechecked, and it's still a theory. There are only 3 laws of psychology that we study in intro. Only 3 out of all the other ones, which are theories, which means it's possible they could change. But many of these theories have been around 40, 50 years, and they haven't changed, so we doubt they're going to change. But they haven't been proved definitively, so they're still theories. So John Watson and B.F. Skinner. Watson is very famous for his experiment, and it's because of Watson, the American Psychological Board actually put some rules in play, and it's not only him, but others too, because you should do no harm to anyone. If you change something, you need to tell them, you need to debrief them. You don't want to do any type of experiment. Excuse me. I have bronchitis. And they didn't give me my meds until today. So I'll try not to cough too much, but I am still recovering. So Watson did an experiment where he had a young child. His name was Little Albert. And he wanted to see if he could teach fear, because he believed that we learn everything. Okay. So he set up the experiment to test to see if Little Albert was afraid of things that were white and furry. So he held a white rat in front of Little Albert, and Little Albert made no reaction. It was kind of like this. Showed a white dog, a white rabbit, a white fur coat, a man with a white beard and kind of looked like Santa Claus. No reaction. Because Little Albert didn't learn to fear those things. But he wanted to see if he could condition Little Albert to be afraid of something that he never was afraid of. So he put a gong, loud gong, behind Little Albert. And Little Albert then was presented a white rat that he showed no emotion to before. And right before he presented the white rat, he hit the loud gong. Now, if any of you have ever been around little children, when they hear a really, really loud noise that they're not expecting, they go, they cry, they get anxious, that they get scared. So they repeated that. Gong, white rat. Gong, white rat. This is actually going to be a type of conditioning, a type of learning. So eventually, they didn't even have to hit the gong. Little Albert would see the white rat and start crying and screaming and moving away. So little Albert was conditioned to fear the white rat, something that he never feared before. And then it generalized. Not only white rats did he become afraid of, white bunny rabbits, dogs with white fur, a white fur coat, men with white beards and white hair, like Santa Claus. He was conditioned to fear that. That's a phobia. Phobias are great paper topics. Depending on which phobia you would pick, you might have to do more than one because some of them are pretty short. But that's how people develop phobias. They've been conditioned. And we'll talk more about phobias as we go on in the course, but maybe that's something that interests you. The problem with Watson, he didn't desensitize little Albert. We have no record of little Albert after this experiment. So he went through life being fearful of anything that had white fur. From a little baby to who knows how old he became. Remember, we said you don't do any harm. So, the American Psychological Association is very strict on their rules because there have been researchers who have done things that have harmed individuals that have not debriefed them. So now if you want to do research, you better believe that you are going to be, using some stricter standards. Okay. Let me step back here again. Skinner worked with rats and pigeons, and we'll talk a lot about Watson and Skinner again when we do the section on learning. That's like our 4th lecture. See, we can't observe the mind, but you can observe behavior. So therefore you can collect data, therefore you can follow the scientific method. And it's at this point that psychology officially is designated a science. Okay? Hang in there, we'll be taking our break in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. When we talk about reinforcement and stimulus response, people do things because they're rewarded, right? Excuse me. Give me 1 second. Thank you. I wanted to grab a drink of water and cough drop. Got so excited. Okay. Humanist. Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow. You may have heard of Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. His basic needs have to be met first. Water, food, air, not coughing, things like that, before you can achieve the bigger things. Carl Rogers, you probably actually know his theory. Have you ever heard of unconditional positive regard? Self-esteem. He's the guy who invented self-esteem and why we give all kids trophies and stickers and put nice little notes in their lunch. we may be taking a break early. I'm sorry. Like I said, he just gave me the medicine today. Let's take our break now. So I can use my inhaler. I will see you. I'm going to say 10 minutes. I will start teaching at 1:15. So make sure you're on by 1:15.
Hey, what's up, y'all?
Hey, what's good?
Cesar, you was going off in this chat, sir. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about that for a second. I just like being social. Don't hate.
I mean, this is my second time taking Psych 101, so she ain't saying nothing I ain't already heard.
Yeah, it's not a bad night though. How's your night going?
No, it's not bad. I actually kind of like this teacher because my first Psych 101 was completely self-taught. Like, we didn't have a Zoom, we didn't meet. She was like, okay, you're gonna read these 3 chapters a week and take a test at the end of every week. And hell to the motherfucking no. Failed.
Oh,
failed,
no.
Wait,
failed,
what?
failed.
Whoever was just talking, what's your name?
Kristen?
I'm Megan.
Oh,
Oh,
you're-
sorry.
Megan?
Kristen.
Kristen?
Megan.
I'm in bed.
Oh, I got you.
Girl,
I see.
was like, I am not getting on that camera. I am sick. Alcohol
Yes.
poisoning is real.
Oh, wow.
Kitty!
Let's get real for a second.
My cat's at home. I'm not even at home right now.
I love virtual classes for that reason.
Same. Because my cat loves to, he likes to learn too.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm
Like,
not
ooh,
the
girl, we'll
only
be
one.
learning today. Ooh.
This is my. You have to see how loud she is.
Kitty!
Oh, look at that cute kitty.
Oh my God.
I mean,
Oh.
Dang, now that's making people leave.
hey, Claire, you gonna unmute your mic? Or are you just gonna sit there eating that food?
I'm crying. Swear I saw her munching and crunching. Munch,
Look at
munch,
her.
crunch, crunch.
She got something in her hand. She's ready to go. Yeah, anyways. Wow.
Hi, cat.
So many people in this fucking class. I'm putting my camera back off because girl, you look amazing.
This is my first time doing online classes, but I don't really know.
What?
Yeah,
Welcome to the party.
I appreciate that. I'm a
Where?
private guitar teacher. Is what I do.
A what?
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
A what teacher?
private guitar teacher.
Oh,
Yeah, like I teach students online and in person.
really? I need that. I need to learn guitar, but my hands are really small for the strings. And
Feel free to get in contact. I can give you the
yeah,
information.
definitely. That was my only downfall. I was trying to play like a mini Fender and it was not working.
Gotcha. I've been doing it for like 15 years, so just let me know.
Oh, nice. I really want an acoustic guitar. Like I don't want an electric guitar. I want acoustic.
Acoustic is fine. Do you know if you want a nylon string or a steel string?
Ooh, nylon. That's a little softer, right?
You play with your fingers. With a steel string, you play
Yeah.
with a pick.
Pick.
So
Yeah,
it
I can't
depends
do
on
that.
whether you like rock or whether you like classical.
I like a little rock, a little indie.
You probably want a steel string.
Still.
Yeah.
My
Alright.
uncle gave me a cigar box guitar, and I didn't know what to do with it. I still don't know what to do with it.
You're supposed to call me.
No.
Okay, no
I
worries.
don't know what to do with it.
Well, that's what you do with it.
I'd rather learn on my own.
That's fair.
Do you
People
teach
do
at
what they
your
do.
house?
Yes, I do. On this very camera.
Well, teaching at the
Awesome.
house.
Teach
the
you how.
At the house.
That would
Play
be.
something. Grab something nearby and just play something.
Yeah. Can you play Black by Pearl Jam right now?
I can't play. I
What?
don't have black. I don't know Black by Pearl
Oh,
Jam.
I'm sorry.
Just be our entertainment for the
Okay,
break.
classic. Under the Bridge.
Under the Bridge.
Smoke on the
You
water.
play any Paramore?
Um,
Any Panic at the Disco?
why don't you
Master of
just
Puppets?
take my information?
Fleetwood
We can do a
Mac?
private call later, and I can play the guitar for you.
Master of puppets.
No, we could do that. I mean, pretty soon if you want.
Fleetwood
You go
Mac.
whole solo.
That would be kind of weird right now because I feel like, you know what I mean?
We technically are in
No.
class.
No, I mean, Yeah.
I hope she's not dying because I literally had the flu a few weeks ago and I couldn't breathe either.
Oh
My
my
mom's
god.
been sick for like 2 months. She had the same thing.
Oh wow. Mine was the gastronomical flu. So not only could I not breathe, I was also not eating and throwing up.
Same.
Yeah.
I had the same thing.
I lost 25
Not even
pounds.
Gatorade.
Right.
my
Not
God.
Gatorade, water. Oh yeah, honey, it was bad. I was like, am I dying? Is this it, Jesus?
Yeah, right? Oh my god. It was my first day of classes and I had to miss because I have a bio class on campus and I messaged her. I'm like, "Girl,
my.
you do
Yeah.
not want me in this class right now.
Okay,
Trust
that's literally why I just stopped going on campus because
me." Yeah.
I'll go
It's
onto my good old computer. I know I have wallpapers on here.
I'm still alive.
Oh,
Remember, guys, this is being recorded, so if there's profanity, you may want to watch that because it stays on.
Oh,
That so just
good
so
to
you
know.
know. I
Can
mean, you
I,
can talk
Anybody
and
said a
do
cuss word?
whatever you want. It's just
I don't think anybody
Yeah.
said anything bad.
can I say something real quick? Hold on.
go ahead. You can talk.
No, I was just
You're
kidding.
allowed. You're allowed to talk. I just wanted to say that so you know that it's being recorded. So
Yeah.
They're gonna hear my cat meowing a million times.
well, that's okay. What kind of cat do you have?
Here, I'll show you. She's sitting right on the bed.
Oh,
She's
Aw.
she's a little diva. She's so loud.
You know, there is research on psychology with cats.
What? Don't tell me that because I will look it up right now. I
Oh
need
my
that book.
gosh.
The stuff with dogs, how dogs, you know,
What?
can read people. They use dogs for, you know, their senses. So that would fall under sensation perception. So yeah, psychology can fit in so many different fields. It really can. I was, you know, gonna mention some of the topics. I always get someone who doesn't choose the topic and they make me choose it for them. So I usually give one that people would hate to pick, but it's one that everyone will listen to, like to the point of a pin dropping. Necrophilia, sex with the dead. People will be like, they will
Wait.
just listen to you.
That's
But
actually really interesting.
It's just a really, I mean, I usually get somebody who will pick it, but every now and then I won't.
Huh.
And then that's like the first topic I give to someone if they ask me. Or things like Munchausen by proxy,
Yeah.
you know, like a parent
Oh,
purposely
like
makes their
Gypsy
child
Rose
sick.
Blanchard and her mom.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a case like that at Children's Hospital about
What?
8-9 years ago, and they finally got the woman on film that she was injecting saline into her daughter's medicine.
What?
They couldn't figure out why the daughter wasn't getting better. Like she'd get better and she'd be
Oh my God.
days, and then all of a sudden she would go like 20 steps backwards. And
Mm-mm.
the mother was getting all this attention because her daughter was sick. And when her daughter wasn't sick, she wasn't getting any attention. So she kept doing this.
Gypsy Rose all
So,
day.
yeah, so it's a good topic. Or Stockholm syndrome, you know, like if you're kidnapped and you fall in love with the person that kidnaps you. So
Oh my God.
I mean, there's lots of really cool topics out there. I just put the basics up on the website, but you know, it's fair reign. You know, you're college students. If you can find something that you think that's interesting and then, you know, have credible research to share it, I don't have a problem, you know, approving that. So, but anybody have any questions? Sorry, like I said, I had pneumonia back at Thanksgiving, and I really thought there for a while that I didn't get rid of it because I've had the cough probably since the beginning of December. And they just refused to give me the steroid. They didn't want to give me antibiotic, all this stuff. And finally I just whined loud enough. I said, look, I teach, I have to be able to, yes. I think there's one on the 3rd floor and I think one on 5.
So it's not, it says 220, that's not right.
Not that I know of. I don't think that one's still open. Sorry. So they finally gave me a steroid and an antibiotic today, because I whined, used a little psychology. I have all UPMC doctors and said, well, they wouldn't see me because I have a cough. I'm like, so I can't come to the office because I have a cough to check out why I have a cough. Well, we could do it by telemedicine. I'm like, how are you going to listen to my lungs by telemedicine? Wow. It's like, this is bronchitis, and they weren't going for it. And I said, well, I guess I'll just have to change to AHN. And I had a prescription 5 minutes later because they were afraid I was going to get on.
Oh my gosh.
So a little psychology can go a long way.
I work for UPMC too.
Oh, where do you work?
I work from home, but I'm a concierge and I do the insurance side.
You too. Cool. Woohoo.
Yeah.
That's neat. So we got 3 more minutes because like I said, I always give people that 5-minute window.
So
Sure.
do you just hate having personal time for yourself? Is that why you're so busy?
I'm a Catholic school teacher. I'm poor.
Oh, wow.
I mean, if I was teaching in a public school, I'd be making 6 figures. I have 2 master's degrees and 25 credits toward a doctorate and a theology degree. And
I would love to engage you in a debate about religion, but I don't think we're going to have the chance.
yeah, but it's like I said, it's something I love doing. I enjoy doing it. Kennywood was the way I paid for college, so I've been at Kennywood ever since I've been in school from high school. I just graduated from high school and was needed a job as I was going to Pitt, and I worked for Pitt Med School for a while doing animal research, and I couldn't stand it what they did to the animals. So I left a full-time job to go back to Kennywood, and then I got a teaching job, and it just, so I've been on the other side of the table a long time.
The ethics and animal research have a lot of improvement to do.
What do
Yeah,
they
Look, she
do to
talks.
animals?
go ahead.
What do they do to the animals?
Well, they were very good with I worked mainly with mice and with rats, a couple sheep. But the
Wow.
med school, now you have to remember, this is like 1982, so
Yeah.
things have changed. It's not like that anymore. But they would practice surgery and different things on the dogs.
Oh,
And we would rotate when we would do the weekend shift to make sure everyone had enough water and everything was okay. And it was my shift on the weekend, and I found a dog. They didn't suture the dog up right, and its intestines were hanging out.
oh no.
So I had to. I was able to save the dog.
Oh,
That was it.
God bless you.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was it. I'm like, I had 20 vacation days and comp time coming, and I went in Monday morning and I'm like, here's my 2 weeks notice.
Yeah.
Bye. So because I didn't want to do that, but it has changed. They don't do that anymore. But 40 years ago they
Look at
did.
Jay Beg is woke. Damn.
That's intense.
So yeah, that was enough. Get out of that field.
All right.
So,
I'm mad. I know.
yes, so okay, we're gonna get started because I have 1:15, and
Muting myself now. Thank you.
yay. No, you're fine. You can talk whenever. It's just easier for people to hear. Sometimes we have, like, if I Zoom at home, you would be hearing my dog Bentley. And you may someday, if we get snow and we're not canceled, I may Zoom from home. So in my coughing spell, let me go back to the humanists. So we strive for self-actualization with Maslow. To be all that you can be. Yes, the army stole that line from Maslow. the best that we can be. And Maslow would have put people in this category like John F. Kennedy, Abraham Lincoln, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, that they basically had all their ducks in a row and they could be the best that they could be. All the rest of us are striving to get there, according to Maslow, and we really never stop learning and becoming better until we die. That's when it stops. So learning always takes place. And then we had the cognitive revolution, and that's kind of the computer model, the Newell and Simon. Information goes into the brain processes the information, and then the information is, like I said, worked on and then comes out in some sort of behavior. So if you think of it, typing into a computer, the traditional computer model, not, some of the ones that we have now that are, almost AI intelligence. I mentioned cognitive neuroscience. You're not going to be tested on that, but I always put it on here because that is a topic that is like 6 figures, if you would work in that field. Not like my Catholic school teacher job. That's why I work 5 jobs. But I like what I'm doing though. And I get to work with you guys, and I wouldn't get to do that if I was working at the public school. Evolutionary psychology. Now, this is going to sound like an oxymoron because it's one of the newer fields of psychology, even though it's evolutionary psychology. It's looking back at what may have been passed genetically from thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years on genetically. So there's some really cool research on dating and why we choose who to date or spend our time with. And they actually surveyed 10,000 college students, 5,000 women, 5,000 men. And they gave them a survey to ask them, what they found most attractive in the opposite sex. And men, their number one thing was physical appearance. And women was stability. That's what they were looking for. So if you think about it, if we go back generations and generations and generations to the cave people time, early man would have want to pass on its genetic code, or would want the healthiest looking person to do that with. So that kind of fits. And stability, women of that time would have, they would have been maybe a little more petite and maybe not as athletic per se as women are today, because their roles would have been different. And they would want someone who's stable, who can take care of them and their family and their future offspring. So you can see there might be a genetic connection there. There's a lot of stuff going on with genetics on how alcoholism, schizophrenia, different disorders are actually passed on in genetic code. So we'll do a quick genetics class as part of lecture 2. It's going to be the fastest genetics class you've ever taken, but we're going to hit all the high points on that too. So if you forgot your genetics from biology, I'll get you caught up real fast. We know there are some things that are universal. A smile is a smile is a smile. It doesn't matter if you're smiling in Africa or if you're smiling in Yugoslavia or if you're smiling here in Pittsburgh. We can recognize a smile. And we can recognize emotions. There are actually some research sites that are actually on the web that you can join. You become a subject. It doesn't cost any money. And you're basically a subject in their study, and they have you match images of an emotion and see if you can get it. So they show you a face and they ask you, is this sad? Is this happy? And there's like 100 some slides of people that you have to decide. So we found that things like smiling and certain emotions are pretty much standard across the world. So what do psychologists do? Well, they're clinical psychologists. They're the ones that actually have a clinical license. That means they can put out their shingle and they can make appointments and have clients come in, and they can give them advice and charge them a lot of money but they have the clinical knowledge. It could be inpatient, it could be outpatient, and it's definitely, I mean, you're talking, you're going to be getting your doctorate if you really want to get in the field and make money. So you're going to spend some time getting that degree and that license. And that would also count for like neuropsychology. Sorry. The pain. Wait 1 second, please. That's what I get for laughing. They do psychological testing. Counselors can also do that. So if you've ever had to go to a counselor for anything, any type of addiction, and all of these could be separate paper topics: drug addiction, alcohol addiction, sex addiction, gambling addiction, all of these. I had a student a couple semesters ago who worked at the Rivers Casino. He did his research paper on gambling addiction. He saw it firsthand. So he said, I want to do some research in this topic. And he gave an example, and I actually witnessed this woman too. But the ass that I am, I had to confront her on it. There was a older woman, grandmother, and on her machine, she had 7 pictures of her grandkids. And before she would push the button on the slot machine, she would touch each picture and then push the button. And I watched her for a couple minutes, and I finally said, let me guess. You won big one time you did that. Yeah, I won $200. Have you ever won $200 again by doing that? Well, no, but it could happen. Yeah, well, I could hit the Powerball too. That could happen, but the chances are, she put a connection to that, and she really believed that if she touched each one of those pictures, that she would hit. Well, it's a slot machine. It's a random generator. It's not it. So I had to kind of burst her bubble, but she still touched the pictures. But I felt that I needed to tell her, Counseling psychologists also do helping people with all the issues that they face. I mean, every type of issue you can think of. People who feel a need to steal, people who feel a need to harm somebody, people who feel a need to be harmed. So there's a lot of issues. Career counseling and vocational training. I don't know if any of you have done this. Sometimes when you're not sure what field you want to go into, so if you're just kind of, deciding, if you take this test, it has like 340 questions, and it asks you things like, do you like the outdoors? Do you like to work with your hands? Are you fond of animals? Do you enjoy making food? I mean, there's a whole bunch of, and a lot of the questions sound similar, but at the end they score it, and it gives you a profile of things that you're interested in that match with possible jobs that you would enjoy doing. So, if you were good with your hands and you like the outdoors and you like, growing things, and you might be a great farmer or working in agriculture. And then it gives you some ideas of majors that you would do. And even some of the counseling departments will even refer you to schools that have a great department. Like Penn State has an awesome agriculture department. So, they would say, maybe you're interested in transferring to Penn State, Maine. Once you go through this, it's something you like. And if you have no clue at what you want to do, it just gives you some opportunity, to explore a different field. Not that you have to go, but that you might want to go in that particular field. So what else do psychologists do? Well, first, there's a difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. Anybody know? Just take your mute off and say it. What's the main?
Yes.
Okay, what is it?
Psychiatrists can prescribe medications and psychologists can't.
That's it. That's exactly it. And I guarantee that question will also be on a test. So now you know two. Yeah, a psychiatrist is an MD. They're an MD with a specialty area of psychology. A psychologist usually has some connection with an MD where they could refer a patient to a medical doctor who would be able to prescribe. In my case, I'm an academic psychologist, so I don't have a clinical license. So I may know from all of my reading in the DSM-4, which is the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual that gives all the different disorders. I may recognize all the symptoms, but I clinically can't diagnose somebody. I can't take money. Somebody could ask me my opinion and I could give them advice, but it would be as a certified academic psychologist, not as a clinical therapist. It's a different license. It's a different degree. But they're not a medical doctor. As a psychologist, that you need to be a psychiatrist to actually have the MD first, and they do a 2 to 3 year rotation in psych. I have a friend who's a psychiatrist at Western Psych. I used to watch her cats, actually, so that's how I got to know her. But yeah, it's challenging because many of the disorders, the symptoms overlap. That's why psychologists always tell people to pay attention to commercials on TV and don't think it's all about you, because you don't necessarily have herpes or gonorrhea or erectile dysfunction. Because if you read all of those things that are on TV, after a while, they all just kind of blend together. So don't get stuck in that trap, but it's actually a clinician who would do the diagnosing, and it's a psychiatrist who would actually prescribe the meds. So as I said, I'm an academic psychologist. I teach classes. I conduct research. But here at CCAC, since we don't have students living on campus, very few of our professors are full-time professors. So you might have one or two of them doing some research, like Deborah, trying to remember her name. Is it not Carney? She teaches stress management. She did her doctoral dissertation on stress management. I mean, that was her field. So she did research actually here, and then she also had students that she was doing research with at CMU, Pitt, Duquesne, Robert Morris, Point Park. So she's one of the few that actually was doing research here on campus. Normally, it's universities that are doing the actual research studies. And if you were taking intro to psychology at one of those major universities, other than paying a heck of a lot more money, you would have a class participation component that's different than ours. You would actually have to be a subject in somebody's research study and read about it and discuss it and do a paper on it, etc. You don't have to do that here. I've had CMU students come here and do research on my students where they actually paid the students. The research was on, does the color of paper for an exam or texture of the paper make a difference on how well a student does on the exam? So my students got paid $10. They had to take 3 exams, so I got $10 each time for doing the exam. And that research should be out pretty soon if it isn't already out. I haven't seen it published yet, but it should be coming out pretty soon because this was just a couple semesters ago. So there are different types of research. Clinical, cognitive, developmental, again, is birth to death. Social is working with individuals, and physiological, anything to do with the body. And that will lead off into like sports medicine, you know, and having psychologists go with the Olympic team. When the U.S. players did these Summer Olympics, they took 6 psychologists with them to help the team, to keep them and support them and help them to get themselves prepared to do the best that they could do. Applied psychologists try to solve problems. Again, developmental. An example would be a few years ago, I don't know if you've ever heard of SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, where baby has nothing wrong with them. It seems perfectly normal and they die within the first year. Like one day you just go to their crib and they're dead. So there are a couple
Why
things.
does that happen?
Well, that could be a paper topic. So I'm not going to give you the full answer to that one because we don't know the full answer, but there are a couple reasons we have worked to try to change it so it doesn't happen that much. But can you imagine the psychology behind a couple that just had this beautiful baby and everything seems okay, and one day they're just dead in their crib? No reason. Some of the things are if mom smoked during pregnancy, secondhand smoke, because it causes low birth weight, therefore the lungs don't develop enough. So that's one of the things. Babies laying on their stomach and possibly blocking their airways. So that's when we went from the, letting babies lay, however, to the what we call the back to sleep movement. So developmental psychologists were confused why babies weren't crawling, they were scooting on their behind, because normally little children scoot on their behind if they had a developmental delay. But these were kids that didn't have developmental delays, that were just scooting on their butt to get places. And it took them about 8 years to figure out it was because of this back to sleep movement. To have the kids lay on their back, the babies aren't going to turn to crawl. But if you were already laying on your stomach, then you would crawl first. But if you're laying on your back, you're going to sit up and scoot yourself. So it was something as simple as that. But that would be something that a developmental psychologist that's applying the theories to real life would do. Human factors, overcrowding, COVID, applied psychology, COVID. We have so many young people that had stress, anxiety disorders, depression, eating disorders, committed suicide because of COVID. Some didn't get to have a prom. They didn't get to walk across the stage. Their sports career got ended because nobody saw them playing their sport their senior year. That would be human factors. Psychologists that work with those human factors and try to help young people that were having difficulty. Industrial organizational psychologists, there's the ones that decide what music you should play in the elevators and on the phone. And Dress Down Fridays were actually started by industrial psychologists. The color of the room of like a hospital, you're not going to paint it red, I'll tell you that, because red is an angry color. So you may want to do your paper topic on colors and how colors affect people's moods. That would be a great paper topic. Personality, why people are the way they are. We already kind of talked about social psychology, but that's used a lot in business. And when we get to social psychology, we're actually going to talk about how companies use psychology to get you to buy products. Like in 2 weeks, you have the Super Bowl, and you're going to have people who have spent millions of dollars on a little 60-second ad. And if it didn't work, they wouldn't do it. So we're going to actually, as part of social psychology, we're going to analyze some commercials and see what techniques they use and how that can help you. Again, another thing outside of this class that can help you in life, you'll know how they're trying to manipulate you to buy something, and you'll be able to recognize it. So that's another positive thing that you'll learn from this class. Sports medicine, again, trying to get the best features out of an athlete. And school psychologists, they're there, anytime a student is struggling in school, whether it be academically, emotionally, physically, kids who might be bullied, kids who are going through, parents who are fighting and going through divorce, and they're at dad's house Monday and Tuesday, and they're at mom's house the rest of the week, except for 2 weeks in the summer when they're with dad. Those are things that affect young people, and sometimes they need to talk to people because sometimes they need that outside perspective. And the scientific method, for all of you that forgot the scientific method, remember, it's what makes us a science. I just put it on this slide so you would refresh your memory. So when you read through the first chapter of the book and you see the scientific method, and it goes on for a few pages, this is kind of the summary of the scientific method. So if you understand this, you've got a good enough grasp on it that you don't have to read that whole section. There are different types of research. So let's talk about some of these different types of research. So you have naturalistic studies. Now, naturalistic studies would be awesome if you could do that. The problem is you're one person and you can't be everywhere. So you would need a team of researchers to actually go out into the community and do observations. And in today's day and age, let's say your research, you believe that children of today are now very aggressive on the playground. You would have to go to a playground and watch kids and collect data. Well, right now, if you go to a playground and you're watching and staring at kids and they're not your kids and parents don't know you, you better have some paperwork with you because they're going to think you're a pedophile. Dead serious. So you need documentation. Plus, you're sitting on the playground and maybe nobody's there that day, or maybe only 2 kids, or you're expecting to take notes, on this aggressive behavior, and you see this 14-year-old young man come and help this little girl on the swing, say, hey, I had it before. Here, let me help you. Oh, you need help getting up on the monkey bars? Okay, I can help you. And I'm like, well, that's not aggressive. Whereas if you were at Bon Air Playground, and I can say that one because it's like right by my house, and it's not like this to him, but you could say, well, if I was at Bon Air Playground, they're pushing people off the swings, they're throwing them down the hill. They don't care. Hey, get off that swing. It's mine now. But I'm not there to take that data down. So even though it's important to do naturalistic observation, and that would be the ideal way, but it's not the one you're going to see most people doing, because it's going to cost more money and more time, and you just don't get the results as quick as if you would do it in a lab. So much of the research is actually done in the lab. The second type, we talked about surveys, right? Doing a survey. So let me give you an example. And hey, we're not on campus, but I think you can understand this one. I've used it. Here at Milton Hall, there are 7 floors. And let's say you were given the assignment. Don't worry, it's not your assignment. You don't have to do it. If I gave you the assignment that you had to make up a survey and get at least 7 people to answer your survey, and then you would be doing the statistical research with that. So we were on the 7th floor, and you get in the elevator, and you already know elevator psychology, right? I'm sure at your age, you've already noticed that. People go in the elevator and they look up and they look down, they look at their watch, they look at their phone. They may talk if they're with someone they know, but if somebody new gets in the elevator, they typically shut up, right? You could do a paper on elevator psychology. Why is that? So let's say that comes in. You come in and everyone faces forward, right? So, and if somebody gets way too close to you, like if there are only 2 of you and that person's like standing right next to you, you get really uncomfortable very quickly, right? So you're on the 7th floor, you get in, there are 7 other people that went in. And as soon as the door closed, you turn around and you're looking at them and you're like, hi, I have this really crazy professor. Her name's Shablovsky, and she's making us do this survey. And well, it's only 3 questions. Can you please just answer this? I'm going to take it down. What are you going to do? Sure. Okay. Do you like ccac? Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we all like, okay. And are you all taking at least 2 classes? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And how many times do you masturbate a day? Don't answer. I don't want to know. But would you answer? And would you tell the truth? Again, think about that. Most people would go, I think I'm going to get off here, because it's an uncomfortable question with people that nobody knows, and they're right there. Masters and Johnson in the late 50s and 60s sent out surveys to over 10,000 women, asking them if they liked sex, because at that time period, people thought women didn't like sex. They were just having sex to perform their marital duties. And it made front page news because over 75% of the women they surveyed said they liked sex, and nobody ever talked about it before because it wasn't something. And people answered that survey, they were pretty sure they were truthful because they didn't have to give their name. They just had to give their age and, how old and like where your location. And you didn't even have to be specific, like state. Were you in the north? Were you in the south? Were you in the west or the east? Very open. And it was like, oh my, they like sex. So that whole idea. But would you think about it? Would you tell the truth? Or would you lie? And that's how we have issues with surveys. Now, you can build surveys that have safeties in them. Like there's a test that we give to our high school students, usually about every 8 to 10 years. It has 400 questions on it, and it's anonymous. And it asks about drugs and alcohol use, so you can get a feel of, how many people are using drugs and, And you may say, well, it's a survey, they can lie. They ask the same question 8 different times. with one or two words different, and they're spread out. And in order for you to know if they're telling the truth, they should answer each one of those questions exactly the same. You're actually allowed to miss it once. Other than that, they throw out your results because it means you lied somewhere. And they want truthful, honest surveys. So there are ways to design surveys, but they take more time. But surveys are easy. You can do them online. The computer tallies for you. You can do paper and pencil ones, not like the ones you get in Playboy and Cosmo. That, those aren't really legitimate surveys. But there are some websites, and I'll talk about those websites later in the course, that you can actually go on and do psychological surveys, and they're legitimate research studies. They don't cost you anything, and they'll give you results. Like there's one for emotional intelligence that's pretty darn close. If you went to a psychologist to actually have it done, it's close to $400 or $500. But when I taught that course, I had my students take the real one, and then I had my students take the one that was online, and their scores were within 8 or 9 points of each other. And the one was really expensive and the other one was free. It was a research site. All they had to do is say at the end, no, I don't want to buy my results. And they gave you your results anyway. You just couldn't copy it. You just had to read it. So there are sites out there, and I'll give you some of those sites as the course goes on. You might be interested in doing it. It won't be required, but you could. And then there are case studies. Case studies are an individual study of one person. So like an example, if you know anyone who had an IEP in school, and an individual instructional plan, that's a case study. They do testing, they bring in a psychologist, they ask you a lot of questions, they do some manipulating of objects in your mind, and they also talk to your teachers, they talk to your parents, they talk to you, and they try to get a well-rounded image of who you are. Correlational research. Here's a little statistics. So we're going to do just a basic statistics seminar like right now, really easy. So we talk about correlational research. Yes, Cherry, question.
Yeah, sorry, my name is appearing as Cherry. That's how it's saved. But anyway, my name is Barbara McCrae.
Okay,
I don't
Barbara.
know if what I want to ask is related to the topic, but I don't know if you ever experienced a situation when you were young where a tree ended up creating an image, or some shadow just created an image which looked like maybe a human being watching, and that thing would move. I only discovered later on that it was a tree, but for so long, I always thought there was a man who always came to the window and was watching. Is that a psychological thing, and is it related to what you're teaching?
It can be a psychological thing, and that would probably fall under an abnormal personality topic. And you'll find out that a lot of the research papers that people do are under that abnormal psychology. It would also possibly be under, of course, Freud for personality theory, but under learning. So if somewhere in your past, an image that you don't remember that's occurring, but it occurred, and you experience it again, your mind takes anything that it has, any image that it has in its mind, and tries to put meaning to it. So all of a sudden you see this image that you're not sure what it is. Maybe you're home by yourself. Maybe you had a bad day. Maybe you watched something on TV, and you may project the image of a man onto something that may or may not be an image of a man. And that could happen repeatedly. And that could be because of your experience that you had. But yeah, that actually could fall into many different categories. And depending on what situations you were exposed to, because the power of the situation can make a difference, what situation, how strong the emotion is, that can make it occur much more often. And sometimes it might really be what you think you see. And other times it just might be a coincidence, and it might be shadowing, or, even someone trying to frighten you in some way or play a trick on you, because that can happen too. People can manipulate other people based on their fears if they know those fears. So hopefully that answers it a little bit. Okay.
Yes, it does. We had very bad habits in the house of scaring each other, and I think those experiences didn't really sit well with me.
Yeah, very, very common. Now, there are ways you can desensitize yourself to that. And when we do the section on desensitizing, hopefully some of the ideas I'll give you would be something you can apply, or maybe you might want to choose that as your research topic and
Mhm.
find information on that, because that's why I let you pick your paper topic, because, who wants to do a topic of bedwetting if I gave it to you? If you don't have children, why would you want to do that? I've found that people tend to write much better papers and be more interested in the class and sharing that knowledge if it's something that they're interested in. And that's why I let you pick a topic. You said 40 some years of teaching. I've learned over the years. So, okay, let's move on. Good. Thank you for raising your hand for that. And there is a way you can change your name on your thing. So it's not that hard, but I'll try to remember that you're not Cherry. So when we talk about correlational research, scores are between a -1 and a +1, where 0 would be neutral. And this is when you have to forget some math that you learned, because it's not a number line in the extent that it's a negative number. It's a negative correlation or a positive correlation. And a correlation is when you compare two or more variables, and you're going to say what direction that correlation is going. So everyone write this phrase down. I'll give you a second to get a pen, or you can type it into your phone, or you can type it into your computer. But correlation does not imply causation. Correlation does not imply causation. And the reason I say that is because there have been people that have manipulated statistics. So it sounds like something, and people don't understand statistics and they fall for it. So they manipulate consumers, they cause fear in some individuals. Like, what I mean by two things don't necessarily cause something. The research shows that death of older males age 70 above is positively correlated with the higher temperature of the sidewalk. That's a correlation. That doesn't mean the sidewalk killed the guy. But there are some people that read that study and they're like, oh, I'm not walking on sidewalks when it's hot outside. It might kill me. And it sounds foolish. But there are people that don't understand statistics and will truly believe that. Of course, the sidewalk's hot. And of course, the temperature then outside must be hot. And if the person's older and maybe has asthma and heart disease and that, and if they go outside, not the sidewalk, but the heat itself could possibly cause a stroke, or high blood pressure could cause a heart attack, and they die, the sidewalk didn't jump up and kill them. But clinically, it would be recorded that that person died on a day when the sidewalk was a certain temperature. So correlation does not imply causation, just because two things go together. And if you saw on that slide that I just had up, higher the family income, people tend to have a higher IQ score. But there are a lot of people that don't have a lot of money that they're pretty intelligent. And there are, a lot of people that have a lot of money and they make very foolish decisions. So is it IQ score, or could it be something else? Height and shoe size. Well, the taller you are, you tend to have bigger feet. But I know people that are short that have really big feet. Like I have a friend who's like 5 foot and he wears a size 13 shoe. Okay, no, just because someone's short doesn't mean they have smaller feet. And just because they're tall doesn't mean that they have really big feet. MAO is monoamine oxidase. I'll talk about that later in the course. Monoamine oxidase is an enzyme in your brain that has been correlated with thrill-seeking behavior. So if you have low MAO levels, you tend to do things that are more risk-taking, like skydiving, speeding 90 miles an hour in a 25-mile zone, jumping off of cliffs. But there are people who have high MAO that just might like to do that. It's fun for them. So just because one is low doesn't mean they're doing that because it's high. Same thing. There are people that have high MAO levels. They get happy and excited just watching the grass grow. They don't need to do those things. So that would be a more clinical example of correlational research being kind of taken to the extreme. And I put, I put these charts up because I did, again, you don't hear me say this, say you could use different versions of the book. I want to make sure everyone has the same charts. So if I'm going to test you on material that may have been on a chart, it's always going to be the charts that are on the PowerPoint. So you don't have to worry if you have previous edition and you don't have the same picture. I would be testing you on the charts that are on the PowerPoint, okay? Experimental group versus the control group. And you might remember this maybe from biology. Your experimental group is the one that you're going to test. Your control group is the one that you keep the same. When we talk about the experimental group, we're talking about the independent versus the dependent variables. So let's say I wanted to know if temperature changes the amount of sweat that your pores produce. I would have 2 rooms of people, randomly selective, because you don't want any bias. And we would start out with the same temperature, let's say 70 degrees in both. I would measure the amount of sweat on every person's arm, both in the experimental and the control group. And then my independent variable, I would change with the experimental group. Let's say I put the temperature in the room up to 80, but in the control group, I keep it at 70. And now we wait. And then after a period of time that I would select, I would measure the amount of sweat on each individual in the experimental group and measure the amount of sweat in the control group. And if there was a difference, then that might be something proving my hypothesis. Okay. But so independent and dependent variable. The independent variable is what you change. The dependent variable is what you're gonna get based on what the change was. And then the control group is just the people you're gonna compare it to. You want to keep it random assignment. The more you can keep it unbiased, the stronger your research. So you don't want casual influences. You want to keep it very controlled. You're looking for one particular variable at the time. The problem is there are just some things you can't manipulate. You can't change someone's brain, like the amount of storage that they have. You can't make someone short. Like you're not going to cut them off at the knees to make them shorter, to see if people treat them differently because they're short, like a stereotype or a prejudice. So there's some things you can't manipulate. So you have to always keep that as a factor. Now, 2 really large words on your screen. These are what I call star words. Anytime you see 2 words or 2 definitions on a slide, there's a good chance somewhere along the line you are going to have to know the difference between the 2. And these 2 particular words show up on 3 out of the 4 tests as a question. So the sooner you learn it, the better off you are, because then you're going to get that question right on at least 3 tests. Reliability versus validity. Again, this is a statistical term. Reliability means you get consistent results, reliable results. So a paper and pencil IQ test given to 3rd, 5th, and 8th graders in the city of Pittsburgh is very reliable. If you gave it, in September and gave it again in December and you gave it again in the spring, the student should get similar results. It's very reliable. Or you looked at the score in the front half of the test versus the back half of the test. It's very reliable. But is it valid? Validity says it measures what it's supposed to be measuring. Does a paper and pencil IQ test measure intelligence? Or does it measure a type of intelligence? And I kind of referred to that a little earlier before the break when I talked about me giving you a multiple intelligence test. So a standard IQ test, paper and pencil test, is very reliable. But the question is, there's a lot of psychologists that are questioning its validity. It measures certain types of intelligence, but it forgets a whole bunch of other ones. And we'll talk about all those different types of intelligence, and then you'll take the test and you'll score your test, and I'll tell you what those mean. See, it's not that bad of a class. Really, you're hanging in there so far. So biased expectations, sampling. One of the things you want to make sure you do is pay attention to bias. And what you can do is do what's called a double-blind study. So I need 2 volunteers, two people. Okay, so Caesar, I need one other person. Can I see a hand? Okay, remind me. I know it's not Sherry.
Barbara.
Barbara, thank you. I'm going to write that down. I have good memory, but after a 2 in some other class, maybe not. So Caesar
Yeah.
and Barbara, you're in my research study, and I'm the person who's doing the research, and God willing, this will never happen to you ever. Okay. But you're coming in to try an experimental drug because you have some sort of disorder.
Oh my.
And I'm the person giving you the drug, and You're saying, okay, this is the experimental drug. You'll come back in 4 weeks and you'll tell me how you're doing. So I'm going to do the little introduction, and then one at a time. We'll start with Caesar. When I asked you how you're doing, you're going to tell me you're doing wonderful. You never felt better, or something that sounds like that. Okay. So Caesar, hey Caesar, it's so glad to see you. How was the month? How are you feeling?
Super good. Oh my God.
That's You're really super good. Oh, I am so excited for you. You feel great. You feel more energy oh, that's wonderful. Barbara, nice to see you. It's been a month. How are you doing, Barbara?
Never felt better.
Really? Really? You never felt better.
Mm-hmm.
You sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
She's lying.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
living the dream.
So thank you. I was kidding. Thank you for participating and playing along. So who has the sugar pill? Barbara, right? And you could tell facial expression, micro expressions, my intonation in my voice, body language, nonverbal cues. Excellent paper topic, nonverbal communication. By the end of this course, I'm going to tell you the ways to hold your body and what to do and what to say in a job interview to help you have a better chance of getting a job. Nonverbal communication. Like I said, there's a lot of freebies that come with this course. There's always a method to my madness. That's what I always tell people. I'm not really crazy. There's a purpose, because there's clinical research that shows why I do what I do. And you'll figure it out about halfway through the course, what I'm doing and why it works. So, bias. I knew who had the sugar pill. I knew who had the placebo. It was Barbara. And Barbara could go, why she didn't greet me the same way. So it's going to bias the results. Whereas if Barbara didn't know, and let's say, Caesar's results were tremendous, but Barbara's are really terrible, you might say, well, this experimental drug really, really worked. Well, no, not necessarily. Barbara psychologically could have caused herself to feel like a failure, and therefore you've tainted the research. So you don't really know if Caesar's drug worked or not. So when we talk about a double-blind study, the person who's actually working with the subjects has no idea who has the real pill or the placebo. Some guy, some woman in some office, in some building, at some computer has the code that knows who got the placebos and who got the actual experimental drug. So that can't happen, because you wouldn't want to get all these people in, especially if it's a life-threatening disease. And eventually, if your research shows that experimental drug is positive, could go on to save somebody's life. Okay, so you really want to watch for that. Okay. And believe it or not, we're almost done. So boy, you guys were good today. Even with my coughing spell, we made it. So pseudopsychology, and some of you may hate me after I say this, but there are things that don't follow the scientific method that people try to make psychology, but they're not, because they don't follow the scientific method, and therefore it would not be considered science. We call it pseudopsychology or pseudoscience. So things like ESP, astrology, they mimic science, but there's no part of the brain that's something people can observe that occurs when you're understanding astrology. There's, no consistent behavior. There's no consistent, credible, repeatable research. I want to give an example. Let me get off the share again. There was a TV show on the Sci-Fi Channel. I don't know what it's called now, but I think it's still kind of like that. But there was a gentleman who said, and I won't say his name because I think he's in prison now. He said he could talk to the dead, and people would flock to his show, and they would fill an entire auditorium. They would wait in line for 3 hours to get in. And he would come on the stage and he would start walking around and he's like, somewhere over here, somebody's thinking of someone, grandmother, wore a blue hat. And the person would be like, that's me, my grandmother, she wore a blue hat. And you loved her very much and you didn't end on very good terms. Oh my gosh, that's right. Oh my, and he was saying that he was actually talking to the grandmother. Except what they didn't know, for 3 years, they had his staff stand in line with those people for 3 hours. Now, what do you do when you stand in line? Think about what you did at the break. You talk to each other, right? So you're standing in line and you only had a break of what? 12 minutes? You're in line for 3 hours. You know, you're lucky your phone battery makes it that long. So they're talking. Why are you here? Well, I'm here. And they had nonverbal cues. Like this was like grandmother, this was grandfather, glasses, chin. They had all these nonverbal cues, just like they have in sports, you know, when you give signs. And they were spread out among the audience and they would sit around the people that they talked to. So as he would walk by that area, they would start throwing some signs and people fell right into it. It was a psychological trap. Made millions of dollars off these people. Went on the circuit, used to do these big parties. People would come out and they would talk to all their dead relatives. No, nothing could be replicated, nothing. And they eventually found out that was all a lie. See, that's a pseudoscience. It pretends to be a science, but it's not really a science. Okay? Almost done. I promise. Same with like ESP. If any of you saw the original Ghostbusters, I know that's beyond your time. I'm old, remember, old as fire. So, I remember the original one. You probably weren't even born. So the original Ghostbusters, at the very beginning, the one Ghostbuster was testing, he was a psychologist, he was testing his research that people had ESP. And there was a very beautiful girl and a guy. And this Dr. Vinkman wanted to have a date with the beautiful girl. So he had this deck of cards that had symbols, and he would say, so what do you think this symbol is? And she would say circle, and it was a triangle, but he never showed, that's right. Oh, wow, you really have it. And he would lie. And he would ask the guy, and the guy was getting it right, but he would say the guy was wrong, and then he would shock him. A little hint into Milgram's study we'll talk about later when we do social psychology. But as the guy got shocked, he was getting better and better, and he was getting them all right, but Beckman wasn't paying attention because he just wanted to do the research so he could get a date with this girl. Okay, that's ethical. That is not ethical. He's trying to be ethical doing research, but he's not being ethical at all, right? He's lying. So that's why we have the institutional review board. You can't do any research with getting an okay from the review board. That wasn't always there. That's why we had animal research that was done poorly. Couldn't do that nowadays. couldn't do it. Research with people, you have to have informed consent. If it's with children, you would also need their parents. There's more than one parent, both parents. You're to avoid deception, but pay attention to this last line, unless necessary. So you are permitted to deceive someone, but notice what came next. You have to debrief them. You have to tell them what the research was. You have to tell them why you did it, and you have to make sure that they're okay. In research with animals, you have to avoid mistreatment of any kind, and you have to provide proper housing and proper food. Now, you can still use food as a reward. You can feed your rats at 9 o'clock and do your experiment at 8 o'clock. So food will work as a reinforcer. You're still feeding the rat. If you feed the rat at 8 and then do your experiment, it's not going to want the food. So, but you're still feeding the rat. So that's permissible to change the time. As long as immediately following what you're doing, you feed the animal. You have to provide proper training and supervision for the experiment. HIPAA laws, okay? Anybody who works in the health industry. Maintain privacy. The APA Code of Conduct. APA is American Psychological Association. You can go to the website and actually read the code. And in that code, it says, it has to be beneficial and not causing harm. You have to be faithful and responsible for your research. And I'm going to go back and say why. You have to have integrity. You have to be just and treat people with dignity and respect and rights for all people. Okay? Now, let me give you one last example and then I'll take any questions, and then officially you will be done for the evening because I talked my little mouth off today. So, and only coughed like 90 times, not bad. I have a weird sense of humor. You'll get used to it. You'll either really like it or you'll hate me. So hopefully it's the first. So you may have heard this. There was a research study that was done in Europe, and it was a little while back, on autism and connecting children with autism with the vaccinations that they got when they were children. And they had all this research, this clinical research, everything documented, and it got published in almost every medical journal around the world. It made, news here in the United States, national, international news. They did the circuit to all the talk shows. It was front page news in almost every paper. And of course, it made it to the internet, the place that nothing dies, right? About 5 years after the research, people were refusing to get their children vaccinated because they were afraid they could get autism from the certain chemical that was in the vaccine. And all these other doctors are saying, look, we're not getting this. We've replicated this. We're not getting this research. It's not causing anything. So they kept replicating their experiment. And they're saying, no, you're doing something wrong. Look,
It's been proven false.
Yep. That's it. It's completely false. They lied. They lied. They made up everything.
I don't know why. Do they hate autism or vaccines or children?
No, they wanted the
They
money.
hate children.
They wanted the money. Because when you do a very high-end research study like that, it brings tons of money into a university. It brings you tons of fame, fortune, gives you tenure in your field. You become credible. You can do the circuit. You can write books. Money. They did it because of the money and the fame. That's what they said. The problem is when it came out that they lied, it wasn't on the front page. It was on like page 42 in little print versus front page and big 64-point font. It didn't make the news everywhere. It might have made it maybe a mention 1 or 2 times. Yeah, it went on the internet, but we have a thing called confirmation bias. If you believe something, you'll find what you believe. So if you, oh, I don't believe that, comes up another site that says you're right, that it's the vaccine. When we talk about integrity and responsibility, how many children may have gotten diseases that could have been prevented? And there are still parents, because they believe this and they believe they're doing what's best for their child, will not have their child vaccinated. We have a resurgence in parts of the world of polio. Polio was eradicated by Jonas Salk, who made the vaccine here in Pittsburgh, at the University of Pittsburgh. It's back. Measles was almost eradicated. It's back. All because of this one study. Now imagine if you have other people who are lying. That's why you have to be responsible for your study, and you have to have integrity. Because if you don't, somebody is going to get hurt. And even if it's just one person that should not have gotten hurt, that's a problem. So with that, I'm done for the evening. If anybody has any questions, if you don't want to stay on, you don't have to stay on to listen to the answers. I hope you have an awesome week. Make sure you read at least chapter 1 and chapter 2 in your book. Go onto the Blackboard site. Make sure you have access. If you have trouble, call the help desk. The help desk number is right on the CCAC website. If you still have trouble and you need me to send you this first PowerPoint, I will be glad to send it to you. And this will be uploaded either to Blackboard or I will upload it to YouTube. That will probably take at least a good hour because it's a 3-hour class. So it may not be up there until tomorrow. But if I can't get it onto the website, I will upload it to YouTube. And then we'll remember for next time, maybe not to say any swear words, because I'll have to make this an adult video since I heard a few as I was walking in the door. So have an awesome night for the people that are leaving, and take care and see you next week.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
For my syllabus, it does not have the same dates as that you showed. I don't know why, but
Okay.
The syllabus still says 2022 for sure.
Oh, okay. Then that's my fault. I didn't upload the new one. I will upload the new one as soon as I get off of the Zoom. That's my fault.
I noticed that about the syllabus, and if you click on the left side where it actually says syllabus, that's where like the wrong syllabus is. But if you go on under what she said, like course documents or something, it has the correct syllabus.
Thank you. I'll change that up, and thank you for telling me. I thought I put it on there, but it's possible I forgot that there were 2 places that it says syllabus, so I will upload the other one.
I have a quick question, Mary.
Yes.
May I ask you, what pages should I look at when I get the book?
Well,
to
again,
cover this.
It's
Chapter 1 and 2.
It's chapter 1 and 2. It's going to be on the history. It's going to be on correlation, and it's going to start the stuff on biology. If you're using a different version of the book, open the table of contents. I teach by topic. I don't teach by chapter.
Yeah.
Find history, correlation, so like the statistic things we talked about. And the next thing is psychobiology. So it's going to be biology. You don't have to read ahead if you don't want to. Some people learn better by actually hearing the lecture than taking the lecture notes, because those PowerPoints are your study guides. If it makes it to class that I talk about it, it's on the test.
Yeah.
If it's something just in your book that I don't address at all, it's not going to be on the test. That doesn't mean it's not interesting. It's just I have 14 weeks to cover 13 fields of psychology.
Yeah, it's unreasonable. I get it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have to pick and choose. But yeah, go by the table of contents. And then this way, if you have your study guide right there, if they have a whole section on neurocognition and I told you it's not on the test, you could skip it. You don't have to read it. Okay? Unless you want to. Okay.
And for the students who don't have their book yet, that PowerPoint is reference to the book. So just look into there and
Yep.
read.
Yep. Yeah, they're all up there. So you can see that. And like I said, if you don't have access to Blackboard, send me an email. It's mshablowski@ccac.edu and just say, can you attach PowerPoint 1? And I will attach PowerPoint 1 and I will email it to you so until you can get access.
Okay, and is there what's the last date that we have until we pick our topic? When you said that we had to pick a topic to write about?
I would have to, let me, and slideshow there. Let me,
And when you stated that, just to be more specific on it, so like, for example, if I wanted to write about behaviorism, do you want us to physically like pick something out of that behaviorism section or just
Correct.
talk about
well,
that?
something in that field. So if you wanted to do, I mean, behaviorism is a huge field. Let's say you wanted to do behavior modification on how a person could change a specific behavior like smoking. What would they have to do? What research has been done on it? What works? What research did not work? You know, and you would share with the class other people's research on your topic. You aren't doing the research because you don't have a clinical license, so you can't. But you can research other people in the field who did, and you're going to share what you found out about their research on your topic to your classmates.
Gotcha.
And
What's
the
the topic about falling in love with their not lover but abuser? What is that based under?
well, if it's someone who like took them,
Yes.
like that would be Stockholm syndrome. If it's someone who keeps forgiving someone who abused them, we call that learned helplessness. Okay, and let me open that up to look.
Yeah.
The topic date was
There you go.
topics are due on the 14th of March. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
And
you.
like I said, I will change that. Thank you for letting me know. If anybody catches any other of those mistakes, please let me know, because I made 3 Blackboard sites all on the same day.
Okay.
And I'm human, I'll be honest. I make mistakes sometimes, so just let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Good night.
Anybody
It was
else?
nice meeting you.
Nice
too.
meeting you.
I'll see you next week anyway, but
Yay.
thank you.
Hi, little one. So cute.
Thank
I've got a question.
Okay.
S- In the class, you had talked about credible information, credible research and resources. So if you go to like a hospital or a police station and you get their real records of a situation, is that a credible source?
One, you wouldn't want to do that because they wouldn't give that to you. But you could go to a university site, or you could, if there's some, we want a legitimate source. You don't want someone who hasn't had any real training in the area,
Mm-hmm.
that they just say what comes off the top of their head. and then make that, oh, this is their research. So, a university, a hospital site, like UPMC, AHN, Cleveland Clinic, actual medical facilities would be fine. Psychologists that have a license, but you would want to avoid like blogs, because that could be anybody. I mean, you and I could start a blog tonight.
Yeah.
May not have any.
What I actually mean is maybe if a hospital has statistics of maybe the number of pregnant women who were diagnosed with postpartum depression, like they just have statistics and not names.
My guess is it would still be a no, because that's still information out of the HIPAA. I
Okay.
mean, they're pretty strict in working in the hospital. I know we're pretty much limited at what we know and what we're allowed to say.
Okay.
If we have a patient who came in with a gunshot, they may be blocked, like they won't even show up on my screen that they're a patient. Unless a parent or somebody comes in with a special code. And then I have to call a certain nurse who has to see if they're permitted to have that person in. And if not, then I have to lie and say that we don't have that patient here.
Okay.
And that's for their protection. So anything that could possibly cross, you may find some research, like documented clinical research, since like UPMC is connected with the University of Pittsburgh. You might find some research out there, but to actually go to the hospital and ask for that, I would say 99.9% no, they won't give it to you. I'd be really, really surprised, even if it has no names.
Okay.
But they may have something uploaded that they did research on, because they would be allowed to use their own information. You're an outsider.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
And anybody else who might want to ask the question or?
Yes. Did it hurt when you fell from heaven?
That now, see, you made me laugh. Now I'm going to cough. Well, thank you. I
No,
hope that
don't make the
means-
poor lady cough. That's mean.
I'm hoping that means you enjoyed the class.
We sure did.
Good.
I
No,
did.
it was great. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, I really enjoy teaching psychology, and there's a different, and I'm not tooting my horn here because it's going to sound like that, but I'm not. Not all your instructors that you have at the college or university level are also certified teachers. I have a master's in education and a master's in psych. I know how to teach. Not all. A lot of them are hired because they have a degree in mechanical engineering, but that doesn't mean they know how to teach mechanical engineering. So hopefully that will be the difference you'll see, and hopefully you'll get more out of the class. But I also expect more because I know what my students are capable of doing. So, okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? Ryan, you look happy.
A good Tuesday, no complaints.
Yeah, well, that's good. We like that.
Besides the snow, I woke up and there was about 2 inches of snow outside. That was miserable.
Yeah,
Right.
and I'll tell you, it was pretty icy too. Driving from my house, I come out on the middle of a third hill. So I have to make it up that hill, and then I get a running start up the next hill, and then I come out in another hill and up. So, and then of course they never salt the south side flats. They'll do the hills, but they don't do the flats. So you kind of just skate all over the place. So, and then last week we were off on Wednesday with a snow day, and there was like no snow.
Yeah.
You
I'm
know,
a
I'm like going, we could have used the snow day or a 2-hour delay today, but you know.
I'm originally from Buffalo, so I'm used to the
Oh,
snow
oh,
and the
this is
cold.
this
It's
is a
just
piece of cake for you.
yeah.
It's just the hills. You don't have as many hills as us.
No, it's all flat because it's right next to the lake.
Yeah.
Hey, you need to go back to Buffalo, bro.
Mhm,
I moved
mhm.
like a half an hour away and like from where I just lived, and the Penn Hills area with snow is absolutely horrid.
Yeah.
They
I
don't know what to do
cannot
with
stand
it. They just they panic, the hills and everything. That's just it.
Well, and the other thing, we're down in the city, we're down one salt truck distribution salt area out there, and it's kind of like the Knoxville area, which would be the feeder for my area. So we're the last, even though we're a bus route, an evacuation route, we're the last to get salt.
Yeah, I'm a bus route and I have a bus stop right in front of my house. So I'm the first house to pretty much get salted. I'm all set.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna be
it's
honest here. Go ahead.
we used to be lucky, and I even had one of my neighbors was a salt truck driver, so, and we were his route, so we got salt always, but what we do now, all the neighbors kind of, little psychology, we work together, the ones of us that are on kind of the hump of the hill, when we're doing our driveway, we shovel in front of our house, like the street, so people can make it up the hill. So if they can get as far as like the fifth house from the top, they'll be able to make it up the rest of the hill, and that gives them a fighting chance at the other two hills. So, any other questions or anything I can help with?
I was just gonna say, you guys are crazy for living out here. I'm from San Francisco, and the weather out here is ridiculous.